Yeah, so good morning, everyone. Let's start with our daily market commentary. Now, what we have is basically Nifty chart on the daily side. Now something which we were talking about yesterday, exactly to the levels of 10,300, where the pullback or the first pullback was seen after a big fall, right? So one good point which happened over here, there was a support which was taken exactly at the base or the bottom of the Moribazu, right? So the quick buying which had taken place, it came back there and made the low exactly around those levels or so. Now what one should understand, there is some kind of support which is seen in Bank Nifty, and as we were discussing yesterday, if these levels are taken out straight away, 10,130 or 10,100 is quite possible. Now what happens today, it opens slightly up and it is trying to inch high. What we should understand, the entire base from where multiple times supports have been taken. So let us zoom in a little to understand. So here 10,450 was the level where multiple times these candles have taken support, and then it opened yesterday gap up and it basically went down. So obviously this mini support that it has taken, it will act like a resistance today. So that is one point which one should understand. If Nifty has to go higher, 10,450 is the bigger point which it has to cross. If this is not crossed, so if you go inside intraday and see the hourly chart or 15-minute chart, if this does not get crossed, then you might find again Nifty sliding towards 10,300. Now the point to understand today is Tuesday, or you can say 2 more days left after this for the expiry. So one thing is there, might be today the fall is not there, it can come back up towards this 10,450 and it might rest over there and then slide a bit down, entering basically as a flat market for today. But going forward, maybe in 2 days, if the fall aggregates and reaches to this level, then straight away 10,100 is easily possible. So the last 2 days, a bigger fall is very, very possible. The possibility cannot be ruled out at all. Now that is where your Nifty is looking like. Now let's go inside and see 5 minutes right from morning what's exactly happening. So here, even yesterday, it started climbing up. So there was a base which was formed around these levels of 10,300 or so. It came over there right from the top. It went down, it reached almost here, and then a pullback rally was seen, right? Now what happened over here, the line which we have made is 10,450. It will become very much meaningful if we go out and see, let's say, the hourly chart. So what's happening over here, if you see now, 10,450 is where the multiple time supports have been taken. This is what we were talking or trying to point out. And this is where yesterday it opened gap up and it crossed 10,450. So the setup on the hourly chart looks amazingly good, that yes, continuous fall took place, came back to the very base of 10,300. A quick bounce back also happened and might test 10,450. But after that, you might have a severe fall going down towards 10,300, and if that is breached at the end, it can basically go down to 10,100 or so. So that is how Nifty is panning out. Obviously, it will be a range bound session, but more on the downward bias, right? If a bigger fall has to come, so if this level has to be taken out, obviously there will be some bounce back. It will spend some time over here around this 400 or 450 kind of range, and if it doesn't reach to 450 and if it goes only around this 400 levels, then you might find it coming down very, very fast, right? So the fall becomes very much unique and fast if it breaches 10,300. So there is no doubt about it. Now let's go and see the similar thing for Bank Nifty. Now when I see Bank Nifty, there is a little bit difference which we see on Nifty and Bank Nifty, and it is quite remarkable. What we see on Bank Nifty over here, as we were talking yesterday, this 25,100 level is very crucial. Reason is, when the big fall had happened, this was the base which it formed and a quick buying had taken place. Now it was not able to go back up, and slowly and steadily it is now being going back down. Now the difference in Nifty and Bank Nifty, this is the base, and if you see yesterday close was below that base. So let us zoom in a little to understand exactly what we are trying to make out of this level 25,130, right? So what was happening over there continuously yesterday, also the fall had taken place, and then it basically went down almost to the base level of 24,800, which we had decided yesterday. But the point is, it is now below a very important marquee level where this was the base, right? So if Bank Nifty doesn't go up even above this current levels of 25,100, then you are seeing Bank Nifty not out of the woods, and you cannot find Bank Nifty going higher, right? So small downside can come in, but important for us to understand whether downside is there or not. Obviously it depends on this level of 25,150. Now how much downside is possible? Try to understand if these levels are taken out. Even on the lower side, yesterday level was 24,800 or so. If these levels are taken out, so up it cannot go above 25,100. But if the downward level of 24,800 is taken out, then you can find a spike of downfall at least 300 400 points towards the end of expiry. So we cannot just rule it out, but try to keep that in mind, that yes, a fast fall can come down because it is now below the base, important base level, and if it doesn't go above, obviously there is a good chance for it to slide down. Now let us go inside and try to look on the hourly chart. Do we get some other hints or not? Pretty much on the broader scale, the daily chart looks pretty much against Bank Nifty. Now the important point on the hourly chart is also to understand this level. So what is the level which we were talking about? Is this base? Okay, this is the range or the base, I can say, on this point. And yesterday if you see, so let's zoom out a bit. See, this was the level where the fall had come right from the top, and it came over here and it bounced back. So predominantly 25,100 are the levels where Bank Nifty has a huge question mark, because if it remains below this, okay, if it is not able to go beyond this, then we have serious troubles for Bank Nifty. Now what we see over here, one thing is pretty much clear, this 25 100 odd levels, and what I see yesterday, it had basically breached the previous day close, which was 25 160 or so. So this is the range of resistance for Bank Nifty. So the idea is pretty much clear. If it does not go above these levels of 25 150 130 or so, there is a good chances for them to go sideways and then come down towards this 24,800, right? And if it this can basically get breached, 300 points fall is very likely. Okay, so what are we looking at? Expiry can be very brutal. From 25,000 it can go down to 800, and it might also go down to 600. So roughly around 400 points fall is also quite possible, right? So we cannot just rule out the criteria that the fall might not come. Yeah, the point is it can go sideways now, but going into March expiry, this kind of levels need to be taken into account, and then there can be a good spike on the downside. So keeping that structure in mind, so we know now our support and resistance levels, and we would focus on them going forward as well. Now let us take today's gainer and loser. So when I see today's gainer and loser, straight away Vedanta is on the top. Now pretty much things are clear over here. If you see, the commodity pack is back. So Tata Steel, yesterday it was down back of the buying Bhushan Steel and stuff. Today it bounces back straight away 1.5%. Vedanta is also up. So yesterday it was a loser. Again, what we see over here, TCS and Infi are there on the top part. So the loser, even Dr. Reddy was not performing, but now it is coming out. Now let's understand on the losing side. So losing side are basically the Kotak Bank, which was one of the strong bank, and it was going up yesterday, has come down. Right. So Kotak Bank becomes very important for us. Even Kotak Bank giving away some of its gain, can bring Bank Nifty down because all the other guys are already down. So Arvind Pharma, Cipla. So Pharma is yet not out, except for now we are seeing some buying in Dr. Reddy. So those are the stocks which are there. Now let's take from Bank Nifty point of view. Yesterday also we had discussed certain banks to understand, can anyone provide a complete downside for Bank Nifty, or who is trying to pull down. So what we see on the IndusInd Bank from last 3-4 days, it was pretty much clear that from the top the correction had come. Okay, and it was basically, it made him enter IndusInd Bank to a very good support range of 1620 and 1600 levels, and that is where you see a good buying coming in. But obviously these are the levels where multiple supports have been taken, and this will act like a resistance around these levels. So at least IndusInd Bank is now entered in its support band and cannot go further down. Let us try to see Kotak Bank. So Kotak Bank has been doing good and not been going down. So what I see on Kotak Bank after the fall, quickly and swiftly it is just trying to inch higher, right? And more than that, now we are seeing a small spike of downside. So it can come back down, but it is more or less in the support zone, showing some signs of upward trajectory. So Kotak Bank and IndusInd Bank cannot go down much. Then you have your HDFC Bank. So we had discussed yesterday, HDFC Bank was looking strong, but a small fall is possible. So what we saw on HDFC Bank, which basically clears yesterday's pullback of Bank Nifty. So if you see on HDFC Bank, this was the level which we had spoken about, 1857. It can come down. It came down almost to that level and it almost recovered back. So this Bank Nifty pull up, which happened in the end, was basically because of the HDFC Bank. So it is clearly visible over here, and this basically shows the buying is there on the downside, and it is trying to go on the higher side. So HDFC, Yes Bank, Kotak and IndusInd Bank are doing good. ICICI, Axis, and Yes Bank were not supporting. So what we saw on ICICI Bank, at least from the base, it is now trying to bring some green candle over here, trying to provide support. So what I see or understand over here, all the big heavyweights are now on the support zone. So for Bank Nifty to crack, obviously these need to go down from their very good levels. So that is little less likely as per the current setup is concerned. When I go out at Yes Bank, and the other banks have already corrected much, and that is where the fall was coming in. So what we saw over here from the top, Yes Bank has also now entered in its support band. So what has happened? The banks are not weak, or if they were weak, they are there in their support zone now. So a bigger fall from here is very less likely, and it is little difficult for Bank Nifty to slide down on the higher side. So what we can understand from these banks, pretty much if you go out and see Bank Nifty, there is no huge downside kind of scenario. So what I see on the daily chart, this levels can be sustained as for now. So 24,800 are the levels which can be sustained as of now. But the point is pretty much clear that on the upside, it will get some pressure at all the levels on the upper side, but predominantly on the downside, if you need to breach 24,400, then you need something very much different to happen in Bank Nifty. So all the good stocks are basically in their support zone. So chances are pretty less for 24,800 to be breached, right? So that is how Bank Nifty has been fanned out. Now let's take Nifty. So when I take Nifty, let us take some of the commodity stocks which are doing well today. Let's try to understand Tata Steel, the fall of Tata Steel, and can come back to the levels from where the correction had taken place. Now, two things that one should understand from Tata Steel. One, when the correction had happened, okay, so this was the level where multiple times support has taken place. So what I see over here, multiple times it has corrected, it has come back, twice bounce, third bounce, and this was the last bounce. From the top, the correction took place. And then the buying took place and then it opened gap up as well. It filled the gap, and yesterday's fall basically not only filled the gap but also brought it down to these levels of support zone. So yes, it can take some time to go high, but it is predominantly clear that 630 levels are very, very important. So you should keep an eye on, don't try to catch falling knives, but let him settle here, let him form some pattern or structure, and then you can have straight away 720 once again on the upside, right? So this should be kept in mind. If I go out and see on Tata Steel front, uh, it has been a good set of rally from the downside as well. But more or less what I see over here is a small support can also come in around 605. So 630 is a very good support line for Tata Steel. It won't breach those levels. It should sustain around there. But if entire market goes down, it can touch a level of 600 for a spike, and then again it will be back above 630. So our structure remains intact. If it remains intact, then the levels of higher levels from where the fall has happened, 715 or so, is quite possible. Now let's see similar things have happened in Vedanta and Hindalco or not, because these are also the commodity pack where they have undergone a correction. Now what I see on Vedanta side, from the top it corrected, but not corrected enough to reach him to the base levels or even to these kind of levels of 279 or 78, which clearly shows Vedanta is on a strong footing. Okay, so there is a strong footing in Vedanta. More than that, if I see, as we had discussed in one of our commentary, the buying took place, and then we had two base candles of red above that green candle. Okay, and what I see or understand over here, whenever the selling has taken place, whenever it tried to go down, it has been pulled back up from those level of 315 or 16. So that becomes a huge setup for Vedanta. And on the upper side, 330 becomes a good resistance as well. So it's going to trade in a narrow range. But ideally, Vedanta has not corrected that much as compared to Tata Steel, which is clearly being seen over here from the higher side. The fall has not happened that fast in Vedanta. Let's see Hindalco. So on the Hindalco side, things are pretty much bad. In what reason is because if you see on the higher side, the Hindalco has basically corrected a lot, and it has come down at least to come back and basically test the levels of 235 from where the rally started. Since the rally was fast, it went sideways, and then the correction also came in pretty fast. Now the important point to understand over here, the buying took place from the bottom, and then multiple times the same kind of format has been formed in Vedanta and Hindalco again. Green candle, and then you have two red candles, and then it is inching higher. Now Hindalco can again face some amount of resistance at the top of 255, right? Because that is where the selling had taken place. But on the lower front, we see Hindalco corrected enough, and then you can basically see a range bound session for Hindalco. But a good buying can come around this 234, 5 or 240 odd levels. So keep that in mind. It can form a double bottom over here. This is the first one, going up, bounce enough, and then come back down, and then a rally towards the high of 275 is easily likely. So that's there on Hindalco side. Let's take some of the finance companies. So let's say Bajaj Finance. So Bajaj Finance has not been doing good. It's been making lower highs. If you see from the top 1950, then it moved almost towards 1850, and now I see around 1750, and now it is not going much higher from these levels. So every level on the higher side has become a good resistance point for Bajaj Finance. The good thing which has happened on Bajaj Finance is the bottom which has been made around this 1530 levels. So once the bottom has been made around these levels, things become pretty much clear, or the level for our understanding, 1530 can become a very good base or support for Bajaj Finance. So the small support had happened at 1600, and now it is trading in a range, but going upside is seeming to be difficult for Bajaj Finance. one thing is pretty much clear: 1700 or 1750 levels needs to be taken out. Then only you can see upside for Bajaj Finance. So 1750 becomes a crucial level for us to watch out. And second, it can come back and test 1530 on the downside from where the base buying had taken place. So that's pretty much in the range bound mode. Let's take India Bull Housing Finance. So all these finance companies can have some pressure on the downside because of the back of the interest rates going high. So when I see India Bull Housing Finance, the same thing has happened. The rally was fast, it came back down, and then the buying took place from these levels of 1222. Right. So one good point is, yes, it had gone up, and the second bottom is in the making, and then it is now remaining almost around those levels of 1222 or so. So it can come back down if the correction permits, but the point is 1220 becomes a very good base where it has to take some support. But on the downside, these are the range for India Bull Housing Finance. Not that it will turn out to be bearish, but these are the base levels from where a good chances of recovery and upside is possible. So 1220 becomes a crucial level for India Bull Housing Finance. Let's take Asian Paint. So Asian Paint, what we have seen from the top of 1250, then around this 1230, then we have 1200. So 1200 has been a major hiccup for Asian Paint, and it has been now sliding down to reach 1100 odd levels. So 1100 becomes a very good support level for Asian Paint, and oil has also slide down a bit, but we need to look at oil whether it can start a new trajectory on the upside or not. So what I see on Asian Paint, this is the level which is very, very crucial, around 1090 or 1100 kind of range, where you can find good support coming in all the time, and you can see a good move happening on the upper side. Now, what I see on Asian Paint is if it comes around these levels, one good thing which has happened is the base formation or the buying which has taken place. So it can come back down at 1100 or so and can find a reversal. On the top, I see 1144 or 1157, 1150, 1140 kind of range, which is very good resistance for Asian Paint. So it can slide down. It can come around these areas of 1100, and then you can find a good uptick coming in as some kind of second bottom is into the formation. So whenever the second bottom formation takes place, the stocks become more rigid. If they try to get the same support intact, then you can find a quick up buying, quick rally or quick uptick coming into these stocks. From the oil front, again, we can go out and see IOC and BPCL and HPCL. They are not coming in gainer and loser anywhere. But what I see on the IOC front, still continuous downfall has been seen for this entire expiry. Right, even after oil getting out or relaxing a bit, IOC is not seeing upside. Now the one reason is pretty much clear: till expiry it won't be seen, because this was the result time when it had went high, and many people would have been bought around this 1415 levels, and from there it has gone down one way. So predominantly we need to understand at this base it should basically find some buying coming in for the next expiry. Okay, so this is where you need to keep in mind. Quick buying can come in as soon as we enter in the March expiry, and it is around the good support zone. So when I see now BPCL as well, even on the BPCL front, the correction is steep and it is inching down. So if you see, it is way below now on a prior good support level as well. So it is now headed for much lower side, even BPCL. So BPCL also seems a little weak. Apart from IOC and BPCL, HPCL is on a strong footing. That is what I have been saying. The point why it is on strong footing, reason is pretty much clear. The results were good. IOC also results were good. So for HPCL, if you want to bet, it's better to bet on HPCL rather than BPCL and IOC. Now the point here is to understand the 375, 377 is where the gap up had taken place. It is coming back around that zone, and you can find some uptick coming in on HPCL. But predominantly these are the levels 367 and 375 to sustain. So let's see if it can provide some uptick from these levels or not. So that's it for today. Let's just have a view back to the Bank Nifty again. So I see some kind of good uptick happening on Bank Nifty. So this is where it has come back. What has happened is important over here. Right in the morning, the selling took place, and then it started buying, and it moved higher than the level of 25,100, which was prior morning high. So what is now important for us to understand, if this level is taken out again, so what I see 25,100, if you see on the smaller time frame, 25,100, if it is taken out, you can find Bank Nifty sliding down again to these levels of morning 25,000 or 25,950 levels can start coming in. So keep an eye on this. Pretty much important levels or structures can be understood from today's Nifty and Bank Nifty setup. What I see on the Nifty side, so on the time frame of 5 minutes, the same thing has happened. It has moved up, and now it is inching higher to the today's high. But this is what we were trying to say: 10,410 or 15 are the levels where we need to watch out. And if they do not cross that, then you can find selling coming in maybe in the next half of the session, right? So that's it for the today. Let's connect again tomorrow and see how this entire expiry is panning out. Thank you for joining in.